If you've been around UNILAG this year, then you've probably noticed the new sleek electric buses moving students between education and campus. They began operations in January under the university's Electric Vehicle Initiative in partnership with Ogota Global Resources and Chart Eco Global Services. And get this, in just 6 months, the buses have reportedly cut carbon emissions by 17 tons. And by December, that figure could jump to 120 tons. That sounds big. But here's the real question though. What does it actually mean for you as a student commuting on campus, whether that is going back to the hostel or attending classes? So on paper, the numbers sound impressive. The buses are fume-free, quiet, and our favorite word, cheaper. But if you step outside, you still notice campus is crawling with petrol cabs, diesel shuttle buses, and of course, the private cars as well, all pumping out emissions. So, are these new electric buses really making a dent? Or are they just a small drop in a very big bucket? To break it down, we are joined by Mr. Itunu, one of the partners behind this initiative. He'll help us understand what these numbers actually mean and whether these projects could shape the future of transport here at UNILAG and maybe even other campuses around Nigeria. It's good to have you here, Mr.
Thank you.
Itunu.
Thank you for having me. Yeah,
Okay.
my
So,
pleasure.
a lot of students are probably wondering, just like I am, when we hear 17 tons of carbon saved, it sounds like a really big deal, right? But what does it actually mean?
Okay.
So, could you just explain what, 17 tons mean and also the projected number, which is 120 tons?
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thank you for having me. My pleasure being here. So yeah, we've been able to, like you said, right, like you rightly said, we've been able to save 17 tons of emissions. So how we got that figure? So that was the figure we got from the first half
Okay.
of the year. That was from January to June because we actually started operations in January. So from January to June, we did a total mileage of the vehicles. So we started with 10 vehicles, 10 electric buses. So we did a total mileage and it summed up to 102,000 kilometers. So apparently we've been able to save 102,000 kilometers. So assuming we're not around, the alternative cabs or the alternative vehicles, which are the cabs, the shuttles, and what have we, would have covered, would have transported students at on a mileage of 102,000 kilometers. So what would have been generated in that 102,000 kilometers is about 20 tons. But that is gross. That's what we call gross emissions, like the total emissions. But when we look at the emissions that we also generated, so for instance, we actually charge our buses with the electric buses now. So from the power that we consume, and when there's no lights from the diesel that we burn and all of that, so we got about 17 tons of emissions as net emissions. So but by the end of the year, we are projecting up to 120 tons of emissions because obviously, we've increased our fleet to about 30 buses. Like I said, we started with 10 buses. Now we have about 30. We have 30 buses, right? 30 active buses, and we've also opened more routes. Initially, we used to ply only the campus to gate routes, but now it has been expanded to the back gates. So we have more mileage. So by the end of the year, we hope to cut, like mathematically, we hope to cut. Mathematically, we are going to cut more than 120 tons of emissions, which is equivalent to planting over 5,000 trees.
Okay.
So just imagine you having like a forest, like a small forest.
Okay.
You know what it takes to have a forest, have over 5,000 trees.
Okay.
So that is what it is equivalent to.
Okay, so
Yeah.
basically, not only are the buses cheaper, but it's also very good for the environment,
Yes,
is what
yeah.
I'm hearing.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
They are eco-friendly.
They're eco-friendly.
Eco-friendly, yes.
Okay, perfect, perfect. And you already explained to us the snapshot of what it means by of what you mean by
Okay.
17
Tons.
tons. So what is a snapshot for 120 tons? That's the projection,
So,
the projected
yes,
number.
yes. No, no, no. So this the 120 tons that I related to the 5,600 trees.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because a tree saves about 23 kg of tons in a year,
Okay.
right? So if you multiply 23 by the 120 tons, you get 5,600. So if you want to know how much trees you need to plant, if you want to know how much trees you need to plant, to save 17 tons, you just multiply the 23 kg by 17,000.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay, so just for clarity, is
yeah,
it the more the buses are increased,
yeah.
the more the numbers increase?
Yes, the more the buses, the more the mileage. So once
Okay.
you have more mileage, yes, you are reducing emissions. So far the buses cover mileage, or so far they move, right? So far they prevent the alternative, which are the
Okay.
cabs, the shuttles. So far they prevent them from moving.
Moving.
You are saving emissions. So
Okay.
that is the concept behind it. So the
Okay.
more the cabs or the petrol vehicles move, right, the
Yeah.
more the emissions. So what you are just trying to do is to prevent this, um, is to prevent the mileage on, or
Okay.
to reduce the mileage of the alternatives. So that's
Okay.
how we are relating it.
Okay.
That's how we calculated it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
So following that, right,
Okay.
coming from understanding that a lot of, the results that we're seeing is based off on the amount of buses we have on campus.
Okay.
How effective then, and this is, entering my second question,
Okay.
is how effective then are the buses currently on campus, considering that we still have the petrol buses in operation?
Yeah. So it's the road to net zero is actually a long road. So
Okay.
Nigeria actually has a target of 2060. That's when we hope to do net zero. So net zero means basically like whatever you are emitting, right? If, for instance, you emit 10 tons of emissions, like you need to invest in projects that will take out that 10 tons of emission. So, right, so this is a good start, and this is also a proof of concept. So, like, we've been able to show that this e-mobility, like, is an effective way of reducing emissions. So, if, for instance, now more than half of the vehicles on campus, or more than half of the commercial vehicles on campus are electric vehicles, right? It's going to cut the emissions on campus by half. You
Okay.
get, so like just like you said earlier, the more the electric buses, the more emissions it reduces. You get.
But then if the electric buses increases
Uh-huh.
and we still have the same amount of petroleum buses operating, is there really a difference
No,
in
like
that scenario?
so like I don't like to say this, but what people say the number of cabs that we used to have reduced.
Oh,
I
really?
don't know.
Okay.
I don't know how true
Okay.
that is,
Fair
but
enough.
that is the word on the street. They say the number of cabs have is a no-brainer. Like, and our price is way cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, and that is the beauty of renewable energy. Renewable energy or or sustainable energy, right, should actually make sense economically. Assuming we came here and said that I want to cut 120 tons of emissions, people will be like, what's our business? But to be able to create like an economic advantage
Yeah.
by reducing the price, because most people actually don't enter the bus because they want to cut emissions. It's only we that's championing the initiative, that just trying to reduce the emissions. So
Okay.
if we have more electric buses, the understanding is that it's going to be cheaper to operate, and if it's cheaper to operate, that means there won't be need for the alternative, which is the petrol cab. I know petrol is so expensive and sometimes it can be scarce. So the more the vehicles, right, the more the electric vehicles, the less the alternatives, which are the petrol cabs or the diesel vehicles and all. So
Okay.
that should, so
Okay.
that is what should happen in an
Perfect.
ideal situation. Like in Unilag, like I said, what we are hearing is that the cabs have reduced.
Okay.
Now true that is
Okay. So let's talk scale, right? Currently, we have just a handful of these buses, here on campus. So how much more buses are we looking to get over the course of the year, as well as what is the roadmap here? Could you just explain it to us? Is the goal to completely eliminate the petrol buses, or is it just going to be a mix of both the petrol and the electric? What is the end goal? Because I'm sure a lot of people, especially those who drive these cabs,
Okay.
like, what is the goal here?
So actually, the goal is to achieve net zero. Like for me personally,
Okay.
like the goal is to achieve net zero, and it also to decarbonize the transport sector. So the transport sector is actually one of the most carbonized sector, like Nigeria, not just Nigeria, in the world. So it generates about, from the transport sector, generate about 25% of the emissions.
Okay.
25% of the emissions of Nigeria's emissions are from the transport sector. So this is more like a proof of concept. This is to show that, okay, an effective way to reduce the emissions in the transport sector is to invest in e-mobility. So UNILAG, just to showcase the how this can be done or how this can be actualized.
Okay.
You get? So that is our ultimate goal, right? Our ultimate goal is to upscale across board, not just in closed communities, because one of the reasons why we are probably thriving is because we're in a closed community,
Space, yeah.
in a closed space where there's an enabling environment. Like I must confess, the environment is very, very enabling.
Okay. That's
Unlike
UNILAG?
UNILAG.
Okay.
Unlike what is probably obtainable outside.
Yeah.
You understand? Like what's probably obtainable outside.
Yeah.
So we are saying, okay, if we want to scale, to the outside world, we have the experience.
Okay.
Right? We've been doing it for almost a year now. So the relevant bodies can come over to say, okay, how do we upscale? Like how do we push it aside close communities? Because if we want to really make an impact, like we need to leave this terrain, like we need to go to the outside. That's where the majority of the emissions. So that's where most of the emissions are generated.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So.
Okay. So I know that you've briefly touched on what you mean by net zero, but can you break it down to like layman's terms? What you mean by net zero?
Okay. So net zero basically is you having like zero emissions. So, but it's impossible for someone to have zero emissions.
Okay.
Because when you even breathe your air, when you breathe out carbon dioxide, you're generating emissions.
Okay.
And all. You must live. The fact that you are living, you are generating emissions. So what net zero means is that if you do, let's say 5 kg of emissions, right, or 10 kg of emissions, right, you must invest or you must come up with initiatives, right, that will take out that amount of emissions that you generated. So if you do 10 kg, right, and you invest, let's say plants, like I said, a tree takes out 23 kg of emissions in a year, right? So if you plant a tree, that means you're on the path to net zero. In fact, you're even below net zero because you generated 10 kg and you compensated by planting a tree.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So that is okay. Let's say for instance you generate 23 kg of emissions, right? And you plant a tree. That tree that you planted has already wiped out all the emissions that you generated. Okay. Do you understand? So that is already net zero. So because it is virtually impossible for us not to generate them, what would have been best is for us not to generate emissions at all. But it is impossible. Right? You have to generate emissions. So if at all we're going to generate emissions, we must come up with initiatives that are eco-friendly, like having solar panels. So for instance now, like instead of using electricity and you have your solar panels, that means you're not getting any emissions from electricity. Yeah. So if you have your cooking gas, instead of using the conventional cooking gas, if you have your biogas, it's reducing your emissions. Like just coming up with initiatives when you have to drive a car. So not by investing in e-mobility, that's just simple things that you can do. For example, by trekking or riding a bicycle. So instead of boarding a cab, to burn diesel or burn petrol, like I just take a walk. So you can just, let's say you want to go to VI now, instead of wanting to bike, I can just take a walk. You can take a walk to VI now, so you've already reduced the emissions. So it's just about you being environmental conscious. So whatever thing you want to do, you have to know the environmental impacts of whatever you want to do. So if it is in your consciousness that I'm going to generate some amount of emissions by embarking on this activity, like you need to also come up with ways that you can use to take out the emissions that you want to generate. You get, so that
Okay.
is basically net zero. You just taking out whatever emissions that
Okay.
you
Understood.
understand?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
So then this just be asking,
okay.
what really is driving, this initiative? Is it more of the fact that you are an environmental enthusiast? Like,
Okay.
do
Okay.
you desire a Nigeria where, you know, the the air is clean, or
So definitely, like I'm also an alumnus of
okay,
this university,
yeah,
right? So when we were in school back then, how much was cab? I think it was about 13 naira to
okay,
15 naira thereabouts,
yeah,
and it got to about 200 naira. So what actually started the whole thing was when it got to 200, we were like,
it's too
it's
much.
too
Yeah,
expensive. Students were complaining because I visit UNILAG a
a
lot.
lot. Okay,
Students were complaining that said they cannot afford it. They kept on trekking.
yeah,
No, so that was when we now came up with the initiative
yeah,
on how to make life better
for
for
everyone.
people. So
Yeah,
not just the environmental aspect, also the social aspects, because it's also a bragging right for UNILAG, because
yeah.
UNILAG is probably the first university in the country to embark on this scale of immobility,
Yeah.
right? So yeah,
And I must say, your initiative is actually making such a huge difference because the other day I actually took it upon myself to board one of the buses. And not
okay,
only is it cheaper, it's actually very conducive as well. I think
comfortable,
yeah, very comfortable.
okay,
One of the favorite thing I loved about is how cross ventilated the buses are.
yeah,
And a lot of students actually love the fact that it's very comfortable
and cheaper,
and cheaper,
yeah,
100 naira. So
okay,
looking forward, right?
okay,
Do we plan, are your plans to take this business,
okay.
outside of Unilag to other
Yeah,
campuses?
we've actually been getting offers from
Oh,
various schools,
okay.
various estates and communities. But obviously, like our plan is to, probably satisfy as much demand as possible
Okay.
on campus, because it's actually a struggle to satisfy the demand on campus, right? But we definitely plan on upscaling. And like I said earlier, it's a proof of concept. The next stage that we are in is to amplify our impact, because I know that we are doing great, but so many people don't know.
Yeah.
Because ideally, the president should be calling us by now that
Yeah, because it's
that's
yeah, yeah.
that is Naipa are doing. How do we,
Yeah, I agree.
upscale across? How do we
Yeah.
take it across? But so the plan is to, like amplify our impact, and after amplifying the impact, then we explore the opportunities, that it brings. So definitely, like we plan on upscaling by going
Yeah.
across schools
Yeah.
and even going outside close communities, like I said earlier.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So, in the next 5 years, what is the future for transportation? Not only in Unilag, from what I'm hearing, but also in Nigeria. What's your vision?
like I said, from the transport sector, they are doing about 25% of national emissions, the
Okay.
emission generated in the country. Like our vision is to reduce the percentage to about
Okay.
15, maybe 10%.
Okay.
So that's why we are offering ourselves as sacrificial lambs
Yeah.
to see how impactful or how beneficial the project can be. So now that we've known that it has gone beyond an experiment or a project, it's now a proper
Yeah,
business.
business.
So the plan is to, like I said, saturate the markets or the roads of Lagos State of Nigeria
Yeah.
with electric vehicles, which will go a long way in cutting down emissions. That is the plan majorly, is to saturate, because like we said earlier, the more the buses, the lower the emissions. The
Yeah.
more the EVs, the
Yeah.
lower the emissions. So that is the plan, to decarbonize
Yeah.
the transport sector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, there we have it. And must I say that not only is this commendable, but it's a very beautiful thing you're doing for the community, for people, even for students here in Unilag. So I honestly could see where this is going in the next 5 years.
Okay.
So there you have it, guys. Thank you Mr. Itunu, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
The numbers look good, but the real test is how much difference students will actually feel in their daily commutes and whether this experiment can scale beyond a handful of buses. For now, the electric rides are a welcome step, but the bigger question is, will they be enough to truly shift the culture of campus transport and even the transport system in Nigeria? Thank you for watching the news review on UNILAG TV. I am Stephanie Sellers.